Alright everyone, so we're going to be assembling the robot. So this is how to assemble, how to build the robot. Okay, so this is going to be the first thing we're going to be doing here. And as I was showing you earlier in the introduction, the robot should look like this. We have a whole bunch of parts and we're just going to go a little bit step by step, but you have instructions on what each component is called and what you need to do with it. Alright, so why don't we start off with this. This is a sheet, it's up to scale, and you actually have a real one here. In the document that came with your kit, there's a parts list, and there's this ruler with scale. There's also something on how to fix the power supply there, but we'll look at that later. Alright, so the first thing is we have this this ruler to scale, and if we go back to the instructions here, I'm going to go through a little bit more here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to grab the two servo motors. We want to grab the motor brackets, screwdriver, and some screws. We want to grab the half-inch screws, and we want to grab the nuts here. Alright, so these are the lock nuts and the other components. So what we're going to do is we're going to start assembling it. We need 8 half-inch, and we're going to need 12 of the lock nuts and a couple of the 3/8 screws. Alright, so let's see how this works. Let's come back over here to our camera. And if you look at the screws here, and you look for the half-inch screws, which are this ones over here. Okay, you can see that this is up to scale. If I put the screw up there, you can see that it matches. Alright, so it's a half-inch screw. So this is an easy way for us to figure out what size screws we need. Alright, you'll need your screwdriver, your 2 servo motors. Alright, we're going to take them out of the bag. Save this bag because this bag contains things that you're going to need later on. Alright, so let's save this guy over here. Save it right there. We got our 2 motors. A little bit more towards me, and we have our brackets, and we have our screws, right, and lock nuts. One of the things I want to show you too, sometimes the chassis will have these little shads here, and you can remove them with the screwdriver. So you just kind of like poke through it, and then they'll come out. Okay, so just use your screwdriver. Alright, so the motors, they go in like this. So like that. Make sure that the body of the motor is on the outside. A lot of people make a mistake and they'll put them in from the other side, but they're supposed to be like this. And then you'll just need your half-inch nuts. You can hold it with one finger on one side. Do that. Alright, and then just continue doing that for the rest of it. Do the other one as well. Okay, gonna just unassemble it, put it in through there as well. And they're going to be looking something like this, right, once they're assembled. Go back to the manual so you can kind of take a look at it. Alright, so next we're going to add these plastic brackets to the servo holders, and you're gonna need 4 of those plastic brackets. So let's go ahead and do that. And you'll need the 3/8 screws. And so we look back at our cheat sheet here. There's 3/8 screws, and you can see that the length matches for 3/8 screws. Okay, so we got it right there. All right, so let's put these guys here. And the idea here is that we're going to basically assemble this. So you have your motor, you have your bracket that goes behind it. Put the screw through there. You have your screwdriver, and you can sit it so that it's easier and level as well. And don't tighten it too far yet. We're gonna put the other one on the other side. Put that in there. Okay. Once you feel that that it's leveled correctly, then right, once it's level, then go ahead and tighten it up. You can just hold it from the other side. Grab the other one, tighten it up. Do the same thing with the other side. Alright, the next thing is we're going to assemble the line following sensor. So we'll need the line following sensor from the packets of the motor, the servo motors. Grab a couple of these little stars, screwdriver, a couple of 3/4 inch screws, and some lock nuts. So it's going to look something like this. Right, so let's grab the parts. So we have our chassis, which is our V3, and that's going to be looking down. And we can pick if we want to use the ones closer to the front, which I would recommend. There's also an option to use the ones on the back. But here's the sensor, and I'm just going to use a screwdriver to open it up. There's our sensor, there's our screws, and here's our little bag from the motors. And I like to use those little star looking horns. They're called horns. We're not going to use them for anything else, so you got some extra horns, and you will need the screws inside this bag later on to attach the wheels to the motors. Alright, so we got the horns, and the idea is to install the sensor here, but the sensor is too high, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this little guy, the little stars, as spacers. Okay, so go ahead and grab the screw and put it in like that. Okay, and we're going to put it in through there, through that particular hole. Okay, and just use the lock nut on the other side. Get the other little horn, put it in there, get your 3/4 inch screw. Again, you can refer back to the size by that ruler sheet that you got. Okay. And tighten it up. So now the line following sensors, which usually face down like this, have the right height basically between the chassis and the sensors. You need that extra. All right. So let's see what else we got here. All right. So we got that. You're also needing a little acorn. So for that one right there, you can use, there's a 1/2 inch pan screw that you'll need, and you'll also need the acorn. Sometimes the acorn will be metal, and then here's what the little flathead screw looks like. 1/2 inch. So we'll put that right to the middle here. Okay, right to the middle. We'll put we'll grab a nut from here, lock nut. Okay. Sometimes I think that this particular piece is not really necessary because it almost never really touches by the nose, but just in case I'm putting it in there, you may need to put a longer screw here later on, but we'll see. For now, go ahead and just put it in with your hand, and there it is. But like I said, the sensor is actually higher than the lock nut, but just in case the robot goes face down, then it's gonna hit the acorn. All right. So now that we have that, let's see what else we got. Okay, so we're going to assemble the feeler sensor switches, and the way that this works is they're going to be on top of the chassis, and they sit similarly to this. Let's see. Okay, so we can refer to the following photo right here. They sit in like this. Alright, so let's check this out. Okay, so they're going to be on top of here. There's some shads that I need to remove. Okay. And we have our feelers over here. We're going to need 4 of this longer screws. So just grab 4 of your longer screws. They're typically 1 inch screws. So grab that and grab 4 lock nuts. Okay. And let's see. There are several ways to mount them. There's a couple of holes in there where it could fit, but really it picked the hole that is all the way to the left here, closer to the end. That's your end point right there. Okay. And here's another shad. Okay, and I can already see that we're gonna have to, let's see. So actually you're better off picking, because otherwise you'll have to bend these things to fit over here. You're better off using the holes that are all the way at the end here. All the way at the end. Okay. So we'll use that particular hole, and it matches with that other small hole here. So we'll put some screws from the bottom. grab the other screw, and there should be a hole that fits it, so this should be good. And this is going to be the front, so that if it bumps into something, it can go back. Right, so you can do that, or if you prefer to put them together, because in the end they're going to look like this. But if you want to put them together, you can. You just have to bend these little guys here so that they don't touch each other and you don't cause it short. Okay, so that's that. You're also welcome to bend these guys a little bit more so that they're different. But this is the basic configuration that you have here. So just put this one here. We'll mount the other one right now. Okay, so it would be something like this. Got the other screw. And of course you tighten them up so that they're nice, and because your robot's going to be running around like this, and it's going to bump into things, right? Again, sometimes I prefer to put them closer, but you'll have to bend this. You can use some kind of a wire bender or any kind of pliers. I like to use just these pliers here, and you can bend these guys here to make it fit. Alright, so let's see what else we got here. Alright, so now that we have the sensor in there, we're going to mount our motors to the chassis, and that's going to require 4 3/8 pan screws and the servo assemblies and 4 lock nuts, okay, to make it look like this. Alright, so let's do that. Alright, so here we have the assemblies that we did earlier. We have the robot chassis, and we have some screws, and these are 3/8 screws again that we're going to be using to mount these guys here. And actually, let me verify those screws for the chassis. Yes, they are going to be 3/8. Okay, so we're going to assemble it, and it's going to look something like this. But we also need some posts, and you have 4 of this post. Okay, you have this post right here. You got 4 of those. Okay, so there's going to be 1 on each corner here. Make sure that the servos are facing the correct way. This is the front of the robot. Make sure that your servos are facing that way. Okay, so make sure that this piece is all the way in the front, and that this piece is also all the way in the front. Right, so one way to know if you're doing it correct, the wire, okay, of the motor is going to be closer to the switches. And so you can see there's a little shad there. Let me remove it. Take off that particular shad there. Okay. So these assemblies will only fit in one area here. Move this a little bit off the area. Okay, they only fit in those particular holes right there, so there's no other way that they can fit. So find a way that they're gonna fit in there, and let's grab one of the posts, grab one of the screws, and put it in from the bottom, and then just use the post right there. let's tighten the first one just enough so that the post is straight. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with all these other 4 posts until we have all 4 posts on here. Alright, so we have assembled the chassis, the bottom chassis with the sensor, several sensors in the front. Got the posts in here. We have the servos facing forward, which we have the wires of the motors, right there. The wire of the motor is closer to the sensor in the front. And that's how you know that you have that piece correctly. Alright, let's see what else we got. Okay, so now we have our Arduino computer, and it should already be wired. Put this on the side. It should already be wired like this. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to install the battery holder on the bottom here. So we need our other acorn, and we'll need our battery assembly here. Okay, so let's do this. Alright, so here's the chassis. Let's move those wires out of the way because this is where the battery goes. Battery pack. So our battery pack goes in like this, right, where the wires on the back are like this. Okay, got the wires on the back, and there's a hole here. There's a hole right there. That's going to match the hole back there. Okay, and for that you're given a very small flathead screwdriver, a screw in there, and this is about this is another 1/2 inch, I believe, or 3/4 flathead, and so it's got it's a little bit of a different. It's not the regular bubble head. It's a flathead screw because it needs to go into the battery tray here. So let's put it in there. Okay, we'll need the lug nut here. And sometimes you'll need to, depends, sometimes you might need to swap this screw with the front one, like here. But let's try it for now here. Okay, so just tighten it up with the screwdriver. Okay, and you can find the other acorn, that little guy there, and go ahead and install it. It's a little bit adjustable where you can push it all the, screw it all the way in or out depending on the height that you need. And so this is going to be determined by the wheels, right? How high the robot's going to be. All right. So what else we got? All right, assembling the upper chassis now. All right, so put this aside. Let's bring out the upper chassis, and we're going to need this spacers, and we're going to need those 1/4 inch screws. So 6 1/4 inch screws, our Arduino board, and 3 nylon spacers. Okay, and the nylon spacers will go on the Arduino board like this. It's only 3 holes that the Arduino has. Well, it's got 4 holes, but you gotta be using these 3 holes to mount it, and then it's gonna go on the upper deck. So let's check this out. Okay, here's our upper deck. It's got a whole bunch of the little shad things that I need to remove out of there. probably gonna remove some of these other ones here. Eventually I'll need to put screws in there. Okay, so we got that in there. We have 6 of this, the little ones, the 1/4-inch screws. So 4 and 6 of those guys. We'll need 3 of these spacers, and here's the other spacer. And we'll need our Arduino board. Okay, so this is turn it around because you have the V3, right? That's the top part, says V3. And the Arduino board is gonna go facing back like this. So the USB connector faces back. This is the front of the chassis. This little guy is gonna go going backwards like this. But we need the spacers, otherwise we can't really mount it. So go ahead and put in, there's 3 holes, right? You got 1, 2, and 3 holes. So we're gonna do the same thing here. Right, so let's put the screw on the first one here. So you can just assemble it like this. Might as well put the other one. And don't tighten it up yet, because you might need to wiggle it a little bit to get it exactly in there. And it looks like the other screw is on this corner, so it'll be on this corner. Okay. So it's closer to where this voltage regulator is. Okay. Alright, so the next step is to mount it over here. We'll use the other 3 tiny screws for that. And we'll start off with the first one. You'll need a screwdriver to help you with that. Don't tighten it up yet, because you might need to wiggle it a little bit. The other one here. And another one. Alright, so now let's adjust it and make sure that it's pretty straight, right? And now you can tighten it up if you like. Now that we know that it's pretty straight. Alright, so always be careful not to pull these ones too hard. Okay, let's see what else we got. Next thing is our sensor shield, and we're going to put it on top of the Arduino board. And so it's supposed to match the patterns. You can see here, I'll show you the camera. This shield is going to go on top of the Arduino board, and you can see the shape of the shield. It's got this nice edge right here, and you can see that the Arduino has the exact same edge right here. So this is just going to go on top of it. So there's some holes that have to match. Just be very careful. And so the pins have to match those holes in there. That's it. Okay, so the wire, the red wire is sticking out the back there. That's how you know you have it. There really is only one way to plug it in anyways, once you try to put it in. Okay, that's that. The next thing is the breadboard. Okay, and the breadboard just has one screw and one nut in there. And we're going to pick the longest screw that you have. Okay, so let's put it in there. And we have our breadboard. The breadboard has a sticky back if you wanted to, but you don't have to. I usually never put it in there. So I like to put in this little tabs of the breadboard going towards the boards there. But find the longest screw that you have. Okay, you'll have a very long screw. Put it in here, and there's a hole there. And find a lock nut. Adjust accordingly, and then hold the nut in the back, and then just tighten it up here. Okay, there we go. So now we have a top and we have a bottom. This is the back of the board here, and as you can see, I did make one mistake. See, this wire is in the way, so I'm gonna have to loosen up this post here so that I can move the wire out of the way. So it's pretty easy. Just need to loosen this up a little bit, brace it down. So now there's more slack on the wires. Okay, so you'll probably run into those kinds of things eventually, where you put something where you're not leaving enough slack on the wires there. Alright, so what else we got here? Got the breadboard, the batteries. So before we put the top, we should put the batteries on it, so that but don't put the last battery on, okay? And always when you store your robot, remove the last battery, because just in case there's a short or something, if you remove the last battery, then you're okay. So let's put in 5 batteries for now. So let's get the camera going here. So there's you should use just regular alkaline batteries. Any alkaline batteries are good. Try not to use rechargeable batteries, because they produce too many amps at the same time, and sometimes you can break the battery adjuster. That there's a volt little power adjuster in the robot that you can actually mess up with the rechargeable battery. So alkaline batteries are the best. I mean, people have used rechargeable batteries. I'm just saying I don't suggest it. So put in your batteries. And we'll just put our first batteries here. And what I like to do is I like to roll them like this, because sometimes when you have a brand new battery holder like this one, you know, something is not adjusted right, so you're kind of adjusting all the springs by doing this, and you're ensuring that it's going to work. So if it doesn't turn on the first time, you have to make sure that the batteries are nice and adjusted in here. Okay, so that's the trick. Battery doesn't turn on, do this, and then it might turn on. All right. So, what's our next step? Let's see. Our next step is to put in the upper chassis and then our little power switch. All right, so let's do that. Okay, so first of all, let's route the wires here. Okay, so we'll first route the 3 wires that came out of our line following sensor, and you can route them through the center here, the center hole. Okay. Then you should route the motors, right? You should route the motor wire just to the side there. There's one side. There's another side. Okay, so now that we got the wires out of the way, it should be easy to put this on the top here. Okay, so there are 4 of the 1/4 inch screws that you need to use for this. Okay. So we have 4 of the 1/4 inch screws that we're gonna use, and then I'm just gonna go right on top of the post that you see here. Right on top of the post. Go ahead and put the 4 screws in there. I like to start with one corner, and then I like to do the opposite corner, and then I don't put them all the way tight yet until all 4 are in there, so that way you can do some final adjustments in case it's crooked. So just kind of put them in, and it'll be easier for you to make adjustments if it's not all the way tight yet. Okay, so look at your robot, make sure that it's not crooked or anything. So now that you're feeling comfortable, go ahead and tighten them up. Okay, so it looks like they're all pretty tight. Eventually some of the screws will come loose. I would not use Loctite on them, because if you do, you may not be able to get the screws out of there again if you need to ever replace a component out of it. Alright, so it's almost there. Look, we just need to put in the switch here on the back and the wheels. There's this switch here, and it goes into that hole in the corner right here. So I'll unscrew the screw here, and we got a washer, top washer, so remove that little washer on the top. It's a little bit hard to remove sometimes, and go ahead and plug it in through the back like this. Put in that washer again. Now that washer also helps you make sure that the switch doesn't swing back and forth as you turn it on. So it's like a lock washer, but they're kind of hard to, they're not like perfect. Let me see if I can do it this way instead. So they have a little tab. The washer has a tab, so if it doesn't match, then turn the switch around so that it matches the tab. Otherwise, so there's only one way that you can install it basically. There's no way to make mistakes. Okay, put in that in there. And I'm sure you have a pair of pliers, right? If you're an engineering student, you have to have a pair of pliers somewhere. Okay, so just hold the switch and tighten it up just enough so that it doesn't go, you know, all the way side to side. And not too much, because you know they're kind of weak and you can break it. But now we have power. Okay, power switch. And we still haven't put in our last battery yet. Okay, so whenever we're ready, we'll be able to put our last power battery in there, and we'll be able to just turn the switch on and see if it's turning on or not. Okay. And that cable is still kind of, oh, here we go. You can just grab this little guy. This is a power regulator, and you can just hide it over here. Hide it in that hole. Alright, so there's that. And the next thing we're going to do here is possibly put in the wheels, but let's see what the instructions say. Okay, make sure that all the connectors on the top are tight, right? So especially that connector here, that connector there, it looks pretty good. So the next thing is the wheels, right? We'll need the little screws that came in the bags for the motors and the wheels. So you got a couple of pretty nice wheels here. Just open them up. And got some really good wheels here. The screws that we're gonna use came in our little baggie where the motors were. And let's see. You're gonna be using this black screws. So there's a couple of them. They gave you a couple, spare one. Okay, so make sure that you use the black little screw and do not use this huge ones, because you're gonna ruin the motor. Okay, so since there's two of them, I'll grab the other one out of the baggie, and so I can have both of them ready to go. Move this out of the way for now. And the tires, you know, they just pop in. Okay. Pop it in. Put the little screw in there. Tighten it up. Yeah, make sure they're tight. A lot of students, for some reason, they leave the wires, the tires all loose and wobbly. Put them all the way in. Same thing on this side. And we just plug them in. Plug that in there. Alright. Yeah, that looks pretty smooth. Alright, so let's see. I think there's one more thing that we need to assemble. Let's look at this. Okay, so we have our infrared sensors to assemble. And so grab the infrared sensors, which are, they look like this on the top. And grab a couple of 3/8 screws. And there's some white nylon washer nuts in there. So here's the sensor, here's a nut, and there should be two of those sensors. Hopefully I can find the other sensor somewhere in here. Okay. Here's the other sensor. Just gonna open it up. Up a little bit. Alright, two sensors, two nuts, and our two 3/8 screws. Okay, and those sensors go right in the front of the robot here, and they go right here, right on each corner. So they basically just come come attached there. And they're already put in a good position where they work the best at the distance between the front of the robot and the sensor. So tighten it up, not too tight. Get the next one in here. Alright, so tighten that one up also. And of course you can adjust them a little bit. You can also adjust the top here for the distance that you want them to sense. Alright, there is, let's see what else is here. I know there's another little motor that we got to put in. Okay, let's not worry about the, okay, yeah, we're gonna mount this little motor here on that hole right there. That's for the sonar sensor. Okay, so we're gonna grab that little motor and we're gonna put it right on the top here. Alright, so there should be a little motor. Let's pull it out of the back so you can see it better. This is a micro servo. And that little guy has 3 screws. Okay, make sure you don't lose them because they're very tiny. So there's going to be a screw for each side of the motor, and there's going to be a screw for the top. Okay, do not lose them, otherwise it'll be hard for you to find some screws of that size. All right, so you use the large screws. The large screws are for the side, and then the tiny screw will be for the top white horn there. Alright, so guess where the servo goes? It goes into this hole right in the middle here. Let's pop it in. Make sure the wire is all the way in. There you go. And there should be 2 little holes there that you can mount the screws on the servo. Okay, just tight enough, doesn't have to be super tight. Good, that's perfect. And then that tiny screw right here, okay, you got a bracket that came with it. You don't have to use the bracket, you can print your own, but if you don't have a bracket yet, then yeah, you can use the one that came with the little film, plastic film. You can remove it if you want to or not. So this goes right on top of here. And we'll calibrate it like this, so make sure that it goes all the way like this, about 180 degrees. Okay, that's as good as it's gonna get there. Okay, so what I did was I just put it straight in first time, and because the motors from factory, they already come calibrated like that. I'll grab that tiny screw this thing is tiny. Alright, so and I think we pretty much have a robot ready here, but let's look and see what else our instructions say. There we go, completed robot. Hey, so we're ready to start with experiment of lab number 1 here. Okay, so this is very, very exciting, and I am looking forward to creating some more labs with you with this particular robot kit. Alright, so we'll see you soon. Alright, so we almost forgot to test the robot here. Okay, so got that one last battery. We're gonna put it right there. Okay. So make sure that I tried this earlier and the first time it didn't turn on, so I had to, just rotate the batteries around. Again, it's brand new, so it needs to be rotated, but turn it on and you can see that the power converter works. You can see that the computer is turned on, and if you see a flashing light, then everything should be good to go, because the demo program is a flashing LED. Alright, so this is good to go. This one is good for you to start all your experiments with. Start wiring it. You got your robot completed. How exciting and how cool is this? Okay. Alright.